A GOP senator is demanding answers from the president of United Airlines after the company saw swift backlash for two incidents involving animals. In a tweet Wednesday, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy said he will file a bill Thursday to prohibit airlines from putting animals in overhead bins. The senator also wrote a letter to the airline after this puppy, died on a flight from Houston to New York City. A flight attendant told the owner of the dog to put it in the overhead storage space. Others on the flight say the dog barked for 2 hours before falling silent. And on Thursday night, a family on a flight from Oregon to Kansas City went to pick up their German Shepherd, only to be given the wrong dog. The airline had apparently switched the two animals and put the family's dog on a flight to Japan. United says it is investigating that incident. CBS News transportation correspondent Kris Van Cleave joins us now from Reagan National Airport in Virginia to discuss these mishaps. Lord help the person at United who had to answer your calls, Kris, on Wednesday about all of this. How is the airline responding to these two horrific incidents?
This is a special security.
Well, United Airlines is doing a lot of apologizing this week, apologizing to the family of that 10-month-old puppy and apologizing to the owners of the dogs that got switched. You have a Great Dane that ended up in Kansas that should have been in Japan, and a German Shepherd that was going from Oregon to Kansas that is still in Japan tonight.
Now, in the case of the puppy that died in the overhead storage bin, what are you hearing about why the family had been instructed to put the dog there to begin with?
Okay, so the scenario plays out like this. They're boarding the flight in Houston. Before it left Houston, the flight attendant apparently noticed the bag was protruding into the aisle and told the family they needed to check it. There was an argument back and forth. The family says, and witnesses on board say that they made clear there was a dog in the bag. United is now acknowledging that the family did, in fact, tell them there was a dog on board, but says the flight attendant either did not hear or did not understand the passenger that there was a dog in that bag. They say the flight attendant did not knowingly put a dog in the overhead bin, but nonetheless, that 10-month-old puppy in its carrier ended up in the overhead bin and stayed there for the entire 3.5-hour flight. We asked the family, well, why did the dog stay in the overhead bin? You could hear it was barking, and they said, it was a bumpy flight. The fastened seatbelt light stayed on the entire time, and they listened to the dog bark for a couple of hours, and then the 10-month-old puppy fell silent.
Oh, it is just heartbreaking to hear that story. You see the pictures as well. How does what happened then differ from normal protocol? I mean, should passengers expect to put animals in the overhead storage space? Is that in and of itself a violation of any kind?
Never, ever should the dog or an animal go in the overhead bin. In fact, this dog was of a size, and that carrier was of a size that it would fit under the seat in front of you. And typically, if you're going to carry on a small animal, you pay a fee, and it can go under the seat in front of you, which is what should have happened here. But there was a tragic misunderstanding, according to United Airlines, that led to this scenario. But under no circumstances should a live animal be in the overhead bin. There's not good oxygen flow up there. The animals get nervous. Flying is stressful enough on animals that it can be deadly, just the act of putting them on an airplane. But putting them in an overhead bin where it's dark and it's hard to breathe, particularly an animal like a French bulldog that can have breathing issues anyway, it's a recipe really just for a tragic outcome like we saw here.
No, it's a very good, an important point to make, that travel in and of itself is stressful for these small animals. So what about this second incident where dogs simply got switched and ended up on the wrong flights? I mean, how does that happen?
Well, United is looking into that. They say that the mix-up happened when the dogs made their connection in Denver, and somehow the crates ended up on the wrong aircraft. Whether it was a paperwork mistake or just one dog was loaded on the wrong plane. Sort of like how luggage can get lost sometimes. It sounds like that happened. Now the good news in this case, while certainly scary for the animals and scary for the owners, the dogs are okay. The Great Dane and the German Shepherd are both fine. They're going to get where they need to go. They're going to have a much nicer ride on their way. Where they're going this time is they're going to have a human companion companion with them to make sure they get there. And in terms of this tragic incident with this puppy, United Airlines says starting in April, they are going to affix brightly colored tags to carry-on bags that contain a live animal so that the flight crews have one more visual cue that there's an animal inside as United tries to do something to keep this from ever happening again. Errol, it's been an embarrassing week for United Airlines. It has created a huge amount of outrage on social media, and it's been played on every news station you can think of. It's really a PR nightmare for an airline that has had a series of PR nightmares over the last year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Look, no one at United intentionally made any of these mistakes, but it underscores the point that when people travel with their pets, they are trusting the airline with their pets, not just their own lives, but their pets' lives as well. Kris Van Cleave, thanks very much.
Sure thing.